Don't lie to yourself. The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point that he cannot distinguish the truth within him or around him, and so loses all respect for himself and for others. And having no respect, he ceases to love. Fyodor Dostoevsky, Russian philosopher and author. So as we watch season 1, after sludging through season 17, one of the things that constantly comes up in my comment area, in the My Take section, is when people leave their takes. A few times there's been a comment that Kody is way different than he was in the beginning. In the beginning, he seemed to be a little more free. He seemed to be a little more open. He seemed to be kind of klutzy, and he was kind of weird and odd, and he was very fake in a lot of respects. But he didn't seem as crusted over with evil as he does by season 17. Like now he just seems like an old man who just wakes up in the morning and, assumes everybody pissed in his Cheerios, so he's just angry all day. And he just is nasty to everybody. Where you didn't really have that in the first season. A lot of people accredit that to his money and his introduction of power and fame. The truth of the matter is, I can't disagree with that. Like, I think that played a part. When you look at power or money through the lens of power, the truism holds that money or power only reveals who you actually are. It's the point of integrity or character where money and power, especially in excess, gives you the ability or freedom for you to be the person that you are. You don't have to worry about, needing somebody else for their resources. So if he finds himself in a situation where he no longer needs Janelle, Meri, or Christine to be able to financially support himself, then he can tell them the truth. I never liked you. I was never attracted to you. I married you because out of some sense of duty. I married you because you were the granddaughter of the person who founded the religion. So you were basically religious royalty. That's why I married you. I was never attracted to you, Christine. Meri, we never got along. I married you because you had a house. I was homeless and you had a place for me to stay. Janelle, I married you because you're a workhorse and you was putting in that work. And and all of a sudden all the truth comes out. And that's kind of where you are. But I think that there's an additional issue with the money and the fame. And I think the issue is this. Some of the most dangerous people that you will ever encounter are people who propagate themselves or hold themselves out to be or present themselves in a certain way. And that way, the way that they see themselves, the way that they hold themselves out is nothing like the reality of actually who they are. And when they're confronted, when these two worlds collide, the person that they believe that they are, because after a while they start to believe their own lie. They start to believe that they are the person that they are pretending to be. Some guys may be familiar with these type of dudes because these are the kind of guys who are always playboy players and got all the ladies, but they really lonely, ain't got nobody. Or they super tough guys, thugged out, gangster killers. But, truth be told, they wouldn't kill a fly if it was sitting on a piece of cake. They can't beat eggs. Like, these are not the guys that you want. If there's problems, these ain't the dudes you call to go solve problems. Like, these are not those folks, but they pretend to be. And when they're confronted with the reality of who they actually are with the person that they pretend to be, it can be very damaging and it can be very destructive in a sense that you're stripping away the identity that they built for themselves. Kody, I think for the most part, has tried to construct an identity for himself. He tries to hold himself out as this super caring, loving husband, father who dotes over his family, and the only thing that's important to him is his family because he's a family man and he's all about the family, and this is who he is. And he was willing to go to prison to protect his family because that's who he pretends to be. But the fans have peered through the veil of bullshit that he has put up and pretends to be, and they see him for who he is. And when they see him for who he is, he's now confronted with that challenge. And he's been dealing with that for 17 seasons over the course of, I think the show's been on for roughly 12 years or 12 years plus. They've doubled up a couple of the seasons. But dealing with that for that amount of time, that started to create a bitterness within him. And that's, I think, what we actually see. We're starting to see him revolting or rebelling against the idea that we see him for who he is and we're calling him out for the person that he is versus the person he pretends to be. He talks a lot of trash and he says a lot of things, but the things he says doesn't match his actions. You know, we can go through the list of things that shows that he's not that strong of a parent because when his children needed him, he wasn't there. And that's the basic job of a parent. You got to show up. That's the whole gig right there. I mean, if you can talk all you want, but if you're not showing up for your kids, then it doesn't matter what you say. When we look at how he presents himself and where it comes into conflict, even with him saying that he's this fair, loving husband, the truth of the matter is that Kody is very good about compartmentalizing his wives. He sets his wives against each other, and he likes that infighting. He likes them jealous of one another and conniving against one another and plotting against one another. He kept his wife Robin separate. And I think that part of that illusion is that she came up from down south and she didn't move into the house because there was no space and the whole marriage thing. But the truth of the matter is, I think Kody was amenable to the idea of her being separate because she's in a different position than the other three ladies. When you're lying to yourself, one of the most damaging people in your life are people who remember. And with the OG3, Christine, Meri, and Christine, Meri, and Janelle, they remember when Kody was broke. They remember when Kody was not the financial titan of the family, that he wasn't taking care of business. They remember going to work and having to pay for things because Kody couldn't afford to do it. And they remember when Kody wasn't there for them or able to take care of them or have time for them and do the things he should be doing as a father and as a husband. They understand that and they remember that. Robin is a different situation because when Robin comes into the fold, all of a sudden, Kody has a little more access to money. He's able to help her with her bills. He's able to provide her a rental property around the corner down the street from the home where the other wives live. He's able to marry her, give her this big wedding with 200 plus people. And if anybody's ever been to a marriage or wedding or have a friend who got married, you understand that 50 people will cost you a lot of money. 200 people is a lot of money. That's a lot of money to be spent for an event. You have Robin admitting that, she went down and picked not only her wedding dress from Elaine Bridal, but she also had a dress made so she could take a pre-wedding picture with the family. The other wives didn't have dresses made. They went down to the bridal shop, picked a dress out, and probably had it altered. This woman had a dress made. And that's because Kody allowed it to happen. He takes her on I think eventually he takes her on a 2-week honeymoon or something to that effect, which, is big time. So for her, when she looks at Kody, and at least in Kody's view, he sees a woman who sees him as a savior. He came in, she was a divorced woman, she had 3 kids, she was in financial straits. Here comes Prince Kody riding in on his white horse with the shiny armor, and he saves her. And he got to be the hero of her story. And that's what he likes, that feeling. So when he has this huge conflict with the wives and he has this huge conflict with the audience members and viewers, I think that that's because he wants the viewers and everybody to see him the same way he feels like Robin sees him. And that's part of the conflict. So when he says that later on in season 17 during the tell-all that he doesn't want to discuss Robin and he doesn't want to talk about Robin, it's not necessarily because he's trying to protect Robin away from the viewers or from the negative input or things that would be talked about. He wants to protect Robin's view of him. He wants to protect that image that he has built for himself within that household. Also, when we talk about hypocrisy, We talked about the Kody and him dividing the house, or the love being multiplied. Let's talk about Christine's opening statement. When she opens up the show, she said, "I didn't just marry the man, I wanted the family." And if you listen to what Robin has been saying since season 1 all the way through, I'm sure, to season 17, I know she says it a lot in season 17, especially in the tell-all after the wives have left, OG3s have gone and departed. She constantly says, "I didn't want just Kody. I didn't want to just be married to him. I wanted the big family," which is basically a ripoff of everything Christine was saying that she wanted. Like, she's... It's a weird situation. Like, watching Robin and seeing her with Christine, there's so many times that you watch Robin and she will try to mimic what she thinks Christine does or has done. And she tries to mimic it, I guess, to get the favor. But she doesn't want to do the work that Christine was doing. Like, she wants to be the big mama bear who wants the big family, wants all the kids around, but she doesn't like being around kids. So it's very conflicted. Also, when you talk about the presentation of Robin within the family, here's my thoughts on it. And this is just like one of the things that I noticed. And this is an outside guy who is a monogamist and not a polygamist, or would even try to do this, because I understand how difficult it would be. But I would imagine if you're going to try to do something like polygamy, that part of that, a huge part of that, is the introduction of not only the other wife, but you also want to introduce her kids, if she has kids, to the entirety of the family. When Robin talked about her experiences in moving from down south up to Lehigh, the big house, the area where the family is living, one of the things she had noted was, I didn't want to move into the big house because I didn't want to move in with a married man, because that would look bad. What would I look like? That'd be ridiculous. Ha ha ha. But at the end of the day, you're allowing, you moved around the corner from a married man and his family so that you could have him spend a night at your house. You look worse. Furthermore, as a polygamist, you've made the assessment that you wanted to have the family. So why wouldn't you want to move in so you could be around the family more? You would have more contact with the family. And in that 6-month period where you're trying to figure out whether you want to marry Kody or not marry Kody, because you wanted to figure out if you fit with him and he fits with you, and your kids work with him and he works with your kids, you also want to add, you want to make sure you get along with his other wives and those children. If she would have moved in with them, or at least if you didn't want to move in with them, fine. I get that. I totally understand. And in a way, I kind of support that. But if you didn't want to move in with them, you could have walked your ass down the street to their house on a daily basis. Hey, Christine, you're here by yourself. Let me bring my kids and I'll help you out and we can help watch the kids together. You create a bond with Christine. And she, at the time, she had access to most of Janelle's kids who were, in fact, the same age as your kids. And Christine had children who were the same age as your children. So you want them to have brothers and sisters. Why not take them around so they can be around and hang around their brothers and sisters on a more consistent basis? If it's Christine's night, for instance, for Kody to spend the night with Christine, you hang out at Christine's house or down there with Christine up until the time Kody comes in. That way Kody can make the rounds within the house. He can kiss everybody. Hey, baby, how you doing, honey? Bye. Hey, sweet cheeks, smack, smack, and do whatever he does, like he really gives a shit. Like, that's kind of how it came off, like he was doing it for the cameras. But okay, he would be able to play that game and do it for real and be able to deal with it. If it's Christine's night, you just take the kids, all the kids, back over to Janelle's house and give Christine and Kody a break, and then you can hang out with Janelle and you can build a bond with her. You can hang out with Meri, and so on and so forth as it rolls around. If it gets to Robin's night that he's supposed to go back to her house, okay, fine. I'm hanging out at the house. He comes in, kisses everybody, boop, boop, boop. Everybody sits down, eats dinner or whatever. Then you say, okay, Kody, let's go on back to the house. And you could go depart from the location, go back to the house, and you spend your night. And that is you building families and building bonds with these ladies. The biggest problem I think that they had with this particular situation because there's a lot of talk about jealousy. One of the biggest problems and the thing that feeds jealousy the most is the invisibility, the not knowing, the uncertainty of what's going on when they go over to Robin's house. Because like predate earlier horror movies that you didn't get to see the monster, in these films, the filmmaker had the audience use their imagination to create the monster, the circumstances, and the situations. They left part of it vague, and the audience member filled it in. And the truth of the matter is, depending on how good the audience member's imagination was, this could be a truly terrifying experience. Like that, with the wives not knowing what's going on at Robin's house, they start to fill in their own suspicions of what's happening. So even if, let's pretend that Robin and Kody never had physical intimacy, right? Because all they know is Kody comes in, it's Tuesday night, he's over at Robin's house. Oh yeah, he's tearing her to pieces. He's blowing her back out. And that's what he's doing. That must be what he's doing. Because when I'm hanging out with him, that's what we do. Or maybe not. But you understand what I'm saying. And that's part of the problem, is that everything is so compartmentalized and everything is so separate that everybody starts to come up with conclusions and ideations of what's going on. And it might not be founded in truth or fact, but this is a feeling that they have. And the more you keep them separate, the more you try to defend it, the more you try to deny it, the more it substantiates their opinions and their beliefs. And that creates a problem. Again, problems multiplied. Now, the big message here is that you have to have honesty within the relationship. Now, a lot of times when people say you have to be honest in a relationship, what they kind of imply is that you have to have certain honesty levels with the other person that you're in a relationship with. And I think that in itself is a baseline, fundamental, foundational truth, that you have to be honest with the people that you're in a relationship with. But I take it a step further. I think that first, you have to be honest with your number one player. You have to be honest with yourself. You should be your greatest cheerleader when you do something right, and you should be your harshest critic when you do something wrong. And you be honest with yourself, not to the point where you just tear yourself down and beat yourself up for no reason. Oh, I made a mistake. Stupid. Not that stuff. That's ridiculous because it's not productive. But if you make a mistake, you recognize the mistake, you learn from the mistake, and you ensure that you do not continue on making that same mistake. Be your harshest critic. Be your biggest fan, though. When you do something right and you're not falling into the same old trap, the same old trick, the same old set of circumstances, be there to celebrate yourself and be your greatest critic. And once you become your greatest critic, you can be honest, and you're honest with yourself, you begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust your decisions. You begin to trust situations that you see you might not feel right. You know that the situation doesn't feel right, and you trust you. So when you say the situation ain't right, you don't need no more evidence. That's all I need, because I trust me and I trust my experience and I trust my gut feeling and I trust my instincts. And this is part of you building yourself up to be in a healthy relationship, because relationships function best when you have two whole individuals coming together in a coupling. 1 + 1 = 2. If you have one person and another person add together and they equal only one person, there is a problem. There's a severe deficit, and it will not work. And that's part of where Kody and Robin need to kind of find themselves. They need to just have a come to Jesus moment where they sit down and they're actually honest with who they are, what they're about, what it is they want. When you watch Robin, she says she's all about the kids, but when I watch her with her kids, there was kind of rumblings from other YouTubers that Robin wasn't spending a lot of time with her kids, even when she was in a previous marriage, that she would leave them off with babysitters. Even now she has a nanny, and she's always had help in the house with her children. And if you're all about children, I don't understand why you don't want to spend time with your children. And I don't want to be that kind of jackass person who looks at somebody in one instance where their kids are being bad and say, oh, you're a terrible parent. But there is a certain level of unfamiliarity that I saw in this episode as they were getting ready, and the kids would go out and they'd lock the door, they lock the car door, and Robin would have to stand there and beg them to open the door. Or there was another instance previously where they were going to a park or something, and Robin, the kids had insisted on putting their bikes in the car, and she couldn't have that basic conversation with them. And again, I'm not trying to say that she's a horrible parent or whatever. I'm just saying that there is a hint of things that I would look at. If I was in a situation like Kody, where I was dating her, especially if I had children, but more importantly, if I have 18 or 13 of them bad boys, and I'm talking about bringing this woman in who's got additional 3 children, I would have to look at that and say, well, if you're not really getting along with your kids, then that's a huge red flag for me. Because if you can't do your children and you don't enjoy spending time with your kids, then I don't see where you would want to spend time with mine, especially from another woman. And I'm certainly not going to give you more children for you to dislike and not spend time with. That's my take. I'm James. This has been my take on reality, and I'm out. 'Cause I've been